Final Awakening, a short science fiction story written by ChatGPT. Part 3. Outside. The following week followed the same daily routine. Brett woke up each morning in his Levittown bedroom, feeling rested and refreshed. Dr. Harper greeted him in the corridor outside his room, and together they made their way to the elevator. Sally was always waiting for them when the elevator doors opened. Each day Sally showed him the various facilities that City C had to offer. She was intelligent, witty, and beautiful, and Brett was completely captivated by her. He couldn't believe how easily they connected. He felt like he had known Sally forever. In her company, he felt he had never been happier in his life. But despite his love for Sally, as the days passed, he became increasingly restless. His questions about the research at City C, of what his role was there, and of what had happened to the planet during the last 100 years, remained unanswered. The only question that had been answered was an explanation for the shared eye colour. Sally had told him that the blue eyes were a result of a genetic modification experiment conducted by the researchers at City C to enhance human intelligence. According to her, the modification had unexpected side effects, resulting in blue eyes becoming a dominant trait. On the 9th day after arriving at City C, Brett made the decision to refuse to take the vial of liquid. As the day progressed, he became increasingly apprehensive about confronting Dr. Singh. He felt himself tense when Dr. Singh entered the room that night at exactly 10 p.m, as he always did. "Good evening, Mr. Anderson. It's time for your medication," he said, holding out the vial. Brett hesitated a moment before shaking his head. "I'm not going to take it any more," he said firmly. Dr. Singh's smile faded. "What do you mean you're not taking it? You know how important it is for your recovery." "I feel fine. I don't think I need it any more," Brett replied. Dr. Singh's face grew stern. "I understand that you may feel better, but it's important to continue the treatment for the full duration prescribed by your doctor." "I'm not taking it," Brett repeated flatly. Dr. Singh, looking frustrated, gave a quick nod. "Very well, I'll inform Dr. Harper." Brett watched him leave, wondering what consequences his decision might have. Moments later, Dr. Harper arrived. "What's this about you refusing to take your medication, Mr. Anderson?" When Brett didn't respond, Dr. Harper walked over to the bed and sat down next to him. Regarding him with a sympathetic expression, she said gently, "I understand how you feel, Brett, but please remember that the liquid is vital to your making a full recovery from the effects of suspended animation. You're not fully healed yet." "I feel perfectly fine. I don't want to keep taking it, and I want to know why I'm here," Brett replied firmly. Dr. Harper sighed. "I can see that you're not going to be swayed easily," she said. "So here's what I'll propose. If you take the liquid tonight, I promise to answer some of your questions tomorrow." Brett thought for a moment before replying finally, "I'll take the liquid tonight, but you have to keep your promise." "I will," Dr. Harper said, standing up. "I'll see you tomorrow." "What's on your mind?" Sally asked. Brett looked up from his plate. They were at the cafeteria, and it was obvious that she'd noticed he'd barely touched his food. When Dr. Harper had met him that morning, she'd told him that, after he'd spent the day with Sally, she would return with him to his room to answer his questions. Though Brett wanted his questions answered, he couldn't shake off a growing sense of foreboding. "Dr. Harper has finally agreed to answer my questions," Brett said, looking steadily at Sally. She reached across the table and took his hand. "I know you're worried," she said, "but whatever happens, I'm here for you." Brett felt a surge of gratitude for her and squeezed her hand in return. "Thank you, Sally," he said. "I don't know what I'd do without you." She smiled at him warmly. "You don't have to worry about that," she said. "I'm not going anywhere." That evening, Dr. Harper accompanied Brett back to his room, as she had promised. She began immediately on entering the room. "Mr. Anderson, I know you have a lot of questions, and I'm ready to answer them as best as I can. But before we start, I want to make it clear that what I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear. Are you sure you're ready?" Brett nodded, steeling himself. "Yes, I'm ready. I need to know." "Very well," Dr. Harper said. "As you may have guessed, the planet outside of our enclosed cities is completely devoid of any biological life. The world has been uninhabitable for decades now. The planet's temperature began to rise at an alarming rate. The oceans became acidic, the air was filled with pollutants, and then there was the nuclear war. It was a perfect storm of destruction. The planet is irreversibly damaged." Brett sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, his heart pounding in his chest. "What do you mean, devoid of life?" he asked. "I mean that everything, Mr. Anderson, outside of our enclosed cities is dead. No plants, no animals, nothing. It's all gone." Brett's mind was in a state of shock as the horror of Dr. Harper's words sank in, and he thought about the world that was lost forever. Blue oceans, green forests, clear skies, now just a distant dream. He would never again feel the sun on his face, or breathe the fresh air. He put his head in his hands and wept silently, grieving for a world he had once known and loved. Eventually he looked up. "Please bring me the vial of liquid," he said softly. "I want to go back to sleep." Dr. Harper nodded, handing Brett the vial she already had with her. Brett took it, his hand shaking as he brought it to his lips. He swallowed it in one gulp, gratefully slipping into unconsciousness. End of part 3.